Hi, I'm so glad to be here tonight. I'm Holly Pituch, and you get the advantage of having not one, but two gingers talk to you tonight, so it's going to be good. You get a lot of redheaded wisdom tonight, so you should probably feel pretty good about that. And I'm excited because what Dan talked about kind of segues and leads right into what I wanted to talk about, so thank you, Dan. We didn't even plan this, so that was good. But because what I wanted to talk about is the importance of being clever. And the reason, I mean, that kind of sounds obvious, right? Like, yeah, you should be clever, of course. Everybody wants to be. And I just saw something on Pinterest the other day. Is anybody on Pinterest? Does anybody get their time sucked away like entire days with Pinterest? I'm like, wow, wait, 4 hours just passed? What happened? So anyway, stay off it if you can. But I saw this thing on Pinterest the other day that said everyone's clever nowadays. And I thought that was interesting. I thought it was an interesting sentiment because that's not my experience, honestly. That's not my experience, is that, oh, I gotta move this way. Is that better? Thanks, sorry. I broke the wall. It's not my experience that everybody's clever. As a matter of fact, a lot of times my history was working for a large corporate company. I built a marketing division for them. And a lot of times what I saw was that we did the same thing over and over again because that's the way we did it. And when you get into that rut of that's the way we do things, you lose that clever edge. And when you do that, you put yourself in a place where you might be doing okay. You might actually be doing really well. You could be cash flowing, but are you missing out on opportunities that you're not even aware of because you've put yourself in a place where you've got that tunnel vision and you're just moving in what you know to do? Is anybody familiar with Aesop's fables? Pretty much everybody's heard of those, right? So, you know, Boy Who Cried Wolf, there's so many of them, it's countless, but one of my favorites that we learned in elementary school was always the crow in the pitcher. And the story is that there's this crow, he's flying around, he's getting hot, he's probably in Florida right now, and he's thirsty and he's tired. And he finds this pitcher, but there's so little water in it, he can't get down into the pitcher. And so he has to think of a way to get that water. He wants that water, but it's down at the bottom of the pitcher. So what he does is he goes and he gets pebbles, and he puts pebbles in the pitcher, and he continues to put pebbles in the pitcher till the water level rises to a place where he can stick his beak in and drink the water. And Aesop, who ends all his stories very sagely, says, necessity is the mother of invention. And I think that's true, and I loved that story. I always clung to that, like, yeah, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Creative problem solving really makes a difference. But the other side of that is, what if there's not a huge necessity? What if business is okay, it's just not everything it could be? You still have the opportunity to grow it into something more. And I can't help but think of people like Steve Jobs or Richard Branson, people who have built a wonderful business on consistently questioning, well, what can we do different? How can we improve this great thing? Hey, we just sold 8 gajillion of these. How can we make it better? You know, and that's something that not everybody does. Not everybody thinks to the point beyond, okay, we've had a success, what now? And so to me, there's an importance in that. There's an importance in growing. I never want to be satisfied with status quo. I never want to be satisfied with where I am, even if status quo is good. So now you're saying to me, okay, well, that's great, Holly, good information. How do we do that? How do we do something different? And it's nice that Dan talked about what he talked about, because that's part of it. You have to question things. You have to look at things and ask yourself from a different standpoint, what could I do with this that's different than what I'm doing now? And would it really be of value? I mean, go through his steps. Take things that aren't even a problem and go through his steps with them anyway. And see what you come up with, because you'd be amazed at the solutions that you can find for things. And in that place of questioning everything, there's another side to it that's also putting yourself around people that you wouldn't normally be around. When I worked at this big corporate company, I spent, by necessity, a lot of my time with the same people. As a matter of fact, I had to travel extensively, and I traveled with these people So we ate dinner together and we did everything together, and you become this sort of homogenous group that begins to think alike. You've all heard of groupthink, right? And so you get this group that you're all kind of thinking the same way. And so to each other, you're brilliant because you're all coming up with the same ideas and the same thoughts. Put yourself in a situation where you're with somebody in a completely different profession from you. Talk to somebody in another country. Make friends. I mean, we have the internet now. My kids are friends with people in Australia. And they're like, yeah, my buddy in Australia, he has Asperger's, but he's really neat. And they tell me about it. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. You met somebody totally different from you, in a different culture, with a different set of circumstances. And we need that in our lives. Don't get so homogenous and so in one place that you forget that there's a whole world out there of people you can talk to, people you can run things by. And as you do that, and I say do that and then read. Read like crazy. And I mean, read books and read the things you like, and then go online and find blogs that are good. I mean, some blogs aren't worth anything. I'm going to tell you that right now. Don't just think, oh, I'm reading blogs, so that's right, that's what she said, right? But find things that are really of value and things that are totally out of your sphere. Read a medical journal. You might not understand all the words, but find something that takes your mind outside of where you are. One thing that it said Steve Jobs did was took a calligraphy class. And he did that when he was trying to solve a certain issue that was facing him at Apple. He went and took a calligraphy class. And so, you know, that's something completely outside of building an iPod or anything like that. But what he did was he disengaged his mind and put it into another problem-solving area. And do you know that your mind actually works? Your physiology is you work harder on problems when you're not thinking about them. That's why we, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm warm. But we stress and stress and stress about a problem. And then we go take a shower and we do the dishes, and then we're like, oh my gosh, I've got it. When your brain does its best calculation is when you've switched tasks and gone to think about something else. So when you're really butting your head against something, take the time to go do something else. Read a book for entertainment, do something like that, because what you're doing then is giving your brain the kind of processing time. It's kind of like how your computer works in the sense, I'm sorry, am I at 5 minutes? Okay. It's kind of like how your computer works in the sense that it does those background functions. Does anybody set their computer to update while they sleep? That kind of thing. And that's another huge point. I watched the other day online, I watched Arianna Huffington's commencement speech, 2013 commencement speech to Smith University. And I'm impressed with this woman. I know the Huffington Post, some people, politically you might not agree with it, whatever. What I say about this woman is she's clever. And she's built an empire. And she's done it completely online, and it's really impressive. And one of the things that she talked about was getting enough sleep. Simple as that. She said, you know what? You girls need to sleep your way to the top. And I'm talking go to bed and close your eyes. And I thought that was so good because when you think about it, there's so much truth in that. We need more sleep. We think if I work and work and work and work hard enough, working harder doesn't mean working smarter. And I read a really good blog that kind of got me thinking about all of this, and it said the difference between smart and clever. And it outlined it like this, and this was a true story in their business. He said, smart is the MBA down the hall who figures out all your processes and figures out what to do with them because that's what you told him to do. Clever is the girl who's on the floor that figures out they can increase productivity by 15% simply by switching the way they adjust their shifts. That's the difference. It's not the knowledge you have, it's what you do with that knowledge and how you take that knowledge and synthesize it in other areas of life that make brilliant epiphanies, like Archimedes. Eureka, I've got it. That was when he took a bath. Do you guys know that story, Archimedes? And he was trying to figure out how to figure out if the gold was, how much gold was in the crown for the king. The king was going to kill him if he didn't figure it out. He got in the bath and he realized his weight displaced the water in the bathtub, and he figured it out. That was his way of figuring it out, and he realized that the weight of the gold in the crown would displace the water at a different degree than any other metal, so he could measure it that way. And I love those kinds of stories. I stick with those kinds of things. I have them embedded in the back of my mind. 5 minutes. Okay. And I taught them to my children as they were growing up. I taught my children to play chess just because it forces you to think a move ahead. It forces you actually to think several moves ahead. And it taught them that there's consequences to their actions. And when we learn that way, and when we learn that we can take what we learned in science and apply it to what we're learning in social studies, and apply that to what we're learning in history, and apply that to what we're learning in psychology, we can really be so much more clever, and we can really come up with ways to attack business situations that I see there's no limit. I think there's no limit to what you can do in business if you really grab onto this approach and take hold of it.